Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Coordinator of Officials with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is football officiating training tape number 1 for the 2021 football season. Really looking forward to getting out there next week. I know that our neighbors in Wisconsin and perhaps Iowa, North and South Dakota have gotten underway, and really looking forward to getting out there next week with our high school games here in Minnesota. This year, we are going to be looking at clips from Missouri, and I want to thank my colleagues in Missouri for borrowing their championship games to us. As many of you know, we did not have a tournament last year, so this is our opportunity to take a look at some football clips from this past season and look at mechanics and positioning and philosophy and rules and pull all of those things together to get plays right yet this season. So really appreciate their willingness to share those with us, knowing that we're all in this together of trying to get better as officials to provide a great product for our high school football players. And remember, even though they are our friends from Missouri, we're not trying to pick on any one crew or team or official. We're just trying to learn from these plays and again, pull philosophy, mechanics, positioning, rules together and really look at these plays from the eyes of the official. Put yourself in the position of the official and how they're handling these plays and what would you do if you had these plays happen in your game, and then discuss as a crew so that you're ready to go on Friday night or Thursday or Saturday or whatever it happens to be. So again, many thanks to our friends from Missouri. We'll take a look at these plays for this week and we'll have some more next week. So with that, let's get to some plays. Okay, on this play we have 2nd and 6, backed up against the goal line. Quarterback drops back to pass, gets flushed out of that tackle box area and throws it into the bench. In years past, under typical NFHS rules, this would be an intentional grounding foul and it was properly called. But I want to talk about the Minnesota rules experiment for intentional grounding that we will be following this year in alignment with what Iowa is doing, and it is pretty much in agreement with what the NCAA does as it relates to exceptions to the intentional grounding rule. And what we're looking for in this situation would be a passer can throw a forward pass so that it crosses or lands beyond the neutral zone if the passer is the first player to possess the snap or loose ball following the snap. So whether they take a hand-to-hand or shotgun, whether the ball dribbles back to them, as long as they're the first person to control it, they can throw it beyond the neutral zone and not have intentional grounding if also they are the only player to possess the ball prior to the pass. So they possess the ball but don't hand it off or throw a lateral or a pitch to another player. And then finally, before throwing the pass, they leave the area bounded by the defined tackle box. And in our case, the tackle box is defined as a rectangular area enclosed by the neutral zone, the two lines parallel to the sideline, 5 yards from the snapper. So basically drawing a line from the right shoulder of the right tackle and the left shoulder of the left tackle and drawing it straight back all the way to A's end line. So a big rectangle, and as long as the passer gets out of that area and gets the pass beyond the neutral zone or the neutral zone expanded, we are not going to have a foul for intentional grounding, even if there is no eligible receiver in the area, which is a change from the past. So make sure we review the language that's in the rules experiment. This document is located on the central hub, so make sure you check out that information as it relates to intentional grounding and how we will handle that in Minnesota for this year. But let's talk mechanics for intentional grounding. If we have a situation where intentional grounding is a possibility, then there's a several part process that we need to follow as a crew. First of all, referees. If you have a quarterback that's under duress, so they're trying to save yardage or time by dumping the football, then our antennas need to go up that we potentially could have intentional grounding. Second piece of that, referees, just because you have that, just because the quarterback is in or out of the tackle box, gets the ball across the neutral zone or doesn't, to an area occupied by an eligible receiver or not, we don't just throw the flag. This is a delayed process. Coaches need to understand and officials need to understand that if we do this right, there's going to be a delay to this, because each official that's involved in this play is going to bring a piece of the puzzle to that decision. So referees, all you know is that the quarterback was in or out of the tackle box, that they were under duress and they weren't down and they were dumping the ball to save yardage or time. Now, line of scrimmage or back judge or maybe even umpire, depending on how the play turns out and develops, you would bring information to the referee and you would say there was an eligible receiver in the area. If there was an eligible receiver in the area, you're going to point at that receiver. You don't even need to come all the way to the referee and say that. Just point at them until the referee picks you up. If the referee sees that, he or she knows no foul for intentional grounding. Okay? If you have no eligible receiver in the area, then you need to come and say, made the line of scrimmage, but no eligible receiver in the area. Then the referee, you make a decision. If it didn't make the line, and we have no eligible receiver in the area, it's going to be a foul whether they're in or out of the tackle box. If it made the line of scrimmage, as long as they're outside the tackle box, no foul whether or not there is an eligible receiver in the area. Again, this doesn't apply to typical NFHS rules. So if you're doing a game in Wisconsin, North or South Dakota, that would not apply. Typical NFHS rules would apply. But in Minnesota and Iowa, please review the rules language and apply those rules. But mechanically, we need to bring multiple perspectives to the table before we make a decision, put a flag on the ground. We need to have all of these pieces in play to make a decision about whether we are going to have a foul for intentional grounding. Finally, referees, when you go to announce intentional grounding, make sure we have all the pieces as part of that discussion before we turn on the mic and make an announcement. So we're going to announce intentional grounding, offense, number 2, 5-yard penalty from the spot of the foul, loss of down, and then we need to know that it's going to be third down. We don't want to be looking at our indicator to know what down it's going to be. Make sure we have all that information ready when we make our announcement. But these are challenging calls at times, but as long as each official on the field brings their piece of information to the discussion, then we should be really accurate on these, and we want to make sure that these are quality fouls. In Minnesota especially, make sure that we know they are in or out of the tackle box, so we need to pick up where that tackle box line is, and then we need to know if the ball made the neutral zone or the expanded neutral zone, and then finally, if the pass is in the area of an eligible receiver, then it doesn't matter if they were in or out of the tackle box or if the pass crossed the line of scrimmage. So we can get better at intentional grounding just by communicating a little bit better and being a lot more patient, and wait till we have all pieces of information before we make a decision. All right, on this play we have 1st and 2 with the ball at the 5-yard line. We had a penalty on the previous play, which had us repeating the down here with a line to gain still in play, and then the goal line, the other line that we have to concern ourselves with. So let's talk about this play mechanically. So line of scrimmage officials, we remember that generally speaking, we are going to be releasing to the goal line on any ball that is snapped between the 5 and the goal line. And remember, we should be about 1 yard at least off the sideline. So we're already working a little deeper, giving ourselves good depth and width to have better vision. Secondly, when we release to the goal line, we're going to release at an angle and work backwards so that when we get to the goal line, we're about 2 to 3 yards off of the pylon, because if we are releasing parallel with the sideline and only end up about a yard off the pylon if the runner, in this case, the quarterback passer, if he were to continue towards that pylon and threaten the pylon, we're going to be backing up and we're not going to be in the best position to see that play start, develop, and finish. And secondly, we're not going to be in the safest position to officiate this play. So make sure we work backwards at an angle, and then we're already deep enough to see blocks and pick up players that we need to see in our vision. And then the other piece of this is when we release to the goal line, either on a play from the 5 or a release on a play inside the 10, and we have a line to gain involved, we should hesitate slightly at least at the line to gain. If we think that's going to be threatened, we can hang out there, but ultimately we want to be at the goal line when the goal line is threatened. So looking at this play, line of scrimmage officials, we should release to the goal line at an angle and stay there. Don't come back to this quarterback who's moving upfield. We can always adjust to get the spot if he is tackled short. But just stay at the goal line in this play. Don't vacate the goal line. We can just have our head on a swivel and pick up what we need to pick up as it relates to blocks. The quarterback being threatened at the sideline or the passer continuing and threatening the pylon with a run. So don't leave the pylon here. We can always work backwards and get the spot. But the key to remember here is line of scrimmage officials, on snaps 5 yard and in, we need to release to the goal line, and we can hesitate slightly at the line to gain if needed. On this play, I want to talk about our mechanics and coverage for a play like this one. So 3rd and long, run into the side zone. The linesman comes down the field, squares off nicely, which is good, but you see that there's a potential loose ball, and the referee races in there to gauge who's got it, and the referee is digging, which is fine. Typically, one of the other officials would do that, and the referee would wait for a determination. But I want to talk about our mechanics as the linesman and then, the rest of the crewmates on this play. So first of all, line of scrimmage, I like that we come and square off on this play, but we need to be a lot stronger as it relates to forward progress or we have a fumble. It doesn't seem to me from watching this clip that the line of scrimmage official really has anything to do with this play. And obviously, if we had forward progress ruled on this play, we're not going to have a fumble, and we would just move on to 4th down. But it doesn't seem like the line of scrimmage official communicates or has any part of the discussion in this play. So we need to be a lot stronger on either ruling forward progress or ruling that we have a fumble. And then if we do rule a fumble and we are interested in who's got the ball in the mile of the pile, then we should be killing the clock right about now. And then once we figure out that the defense has it, no problem, we signal just like we do here, and we get them to clear and go to their sideline. That's great. Or if we figure out that the offense has the ball, then the referee will just step back and wind the game clock. Because remember, this whole time, the play clock is running from 40 on down. And just know that if the offense were to retain possession, referees and back judges for sure remember that if we don't get the ball on the ground by the time the play clock gets to 25 seconds, we should pump it back to 25 so they at least have 25 seconds to make a play, call decision, and communicate that in. So just to recap, line of scrimmage, we need to be a lot stronger on forward progress, fumble, not a fumble, and then just be a little bit more efficient on our clock management. Once we're digging a pile, let's kill the clock, figure out who has it. Offense retains, referee step back and wind the clock. Defense gets the ball, then just turn and face and give the 1st down signal like the referee does in this case. On this play, we have 4th and 2, so line to gain is the critical spot here, and we have a tight spot. So I like how the line of scrimmage officials pinch hard, so that part's good, but just a tip here, line of scrimmage officials come all the way into players until you get to players, then you would stop, and then that's where we would put the ball down. And then umpires don't throw the ball to the line of scrimmage, because if the line of scrimmage official drops the football, loses their spot, then obviously that's a credibility issue on whether that spot is in fact accurate. So line of scrimmage officials pinch all the way to players. Umpires don't throw the ball to the line of scrimmage official. And then the other piece here, you notice the referee stops the clock to indicate that they are going to look at whether they should measure or they're short. And that's fine, but the clock continues to run. And if this is fourth down, we know that the clock is going to stop at the end of this play no matter what, whether team A or B is going to get a first down. So we need to be more aware of clock status and whether it should be continuing to run or stop. It should have stopped right at the end of this play. And then as long as we know that we need to make a particular big line, so in this case we need to make the A47. If we know that it didn't make the A47, no need to measure. We just turn and give it to Team B, as the referee does here. Just takes a quick look, sees that they didn't make the 47, or there's that communication with the line of scrimmage official who should know in advance what they need to make. And it's clear in this replay here that the ball does not make the 47. The nose of the ball does not make the 47, which would give them a first down. So just a couple things to clean up. I like how we pinch hard. Umpires don't throw the ball to them. Line of scrimmage officials come all the way to players before you stop and then put the ball down. And if we know in advance that they didn't make a particular line, we can dispense of giving Team B a first down. So just a couple things to clean up, but overall, a nice job of pinching in on a tough spot. Okay, we have a free kick here, and the kicker is going to kick the ball out of bounds untouched by R. So we have a flag down, so that's good. The spot, not really critical in this particular case. It might be if we were further upfield, the spot would be critical, but in this case, not critical. Remember, Missouri has different mechanics. We would be coming forward on this from the pylon to get the spot, but again, the spot not critical. So let's talk about our options as it relates to penalty enforcement. I also want to point out that the referee does do a very nice job of dispensing of this enforcement very quickly. Gets right into the announcement, not a big delay. So that's very well done by the referee in this particular case. But if we're talking about the rule and enforcement, let's take a look at page 54. Rule 619, and that says that a free kick shall not be kicked out of bounds between the goal lines untouched inbounds by R, which was what we have here. If it is kicked out of bounds and R does not accept a penalty for kick-catch interference on the same kick, as in 654, which we don't have kick-catch interference here, R has the following choices. So A, accept a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot and have K re-kick. Okay, so that's one choice. B, accept a 5-yard penalty from the succeeding spot. So in this particular case, it goes out of bounds at the 16-yard line. So if they accepted that provision, it would put the ball at the 21. Obviously not going to take that choice, but they might if the ball goes out of bounds further upfield. C, put the ball in play at the inbound spot 25 yards beyond the previous spot. So it's important to know this aspect of the rule if we kick off from a spot different from the 40-yard line. So if we kick off from the 50 or some other place when it's relocated by penalty, that would affect where this provision would be enforced from. In particular, on a safety kick. So we have a safety and now we're kicking off from the 20. They kick it out of bounds, one of the options would be to put it at the B45. So just something to keep in mind on that. And then D, decline the penalty and put the ball in play at the inbound spot. So not sure that anyone would ever take that option, but it always, taking the result of the play is always an option. But let's take a look at what they do here. They ultimately decide to use provision C, which is put the ball in play at the inbound spot 25 yards beyond the previous spot, which is a choice. But let's take a look at where they put the ball in play. You'll notice that after enforcement, the ball is in the middle of the field, and that is not an option. It needs to go to the inbound spot. So in this particular case, it goes out of bounds opposite the press box, so it needs to be on that inbound spot, on that hash, on the left hash. That's where it needs to be put in place. And you may have teams request to put the ball in the middle of the field or on the right hash or right middle or whatever it might be, and that's not a choice by rule. If they want it in the middle, it's going to have to be a touchback, or they're going to have to run the ball back for them to have that option. So it's a small point, but just remember that that's part of the rule. That's where it needs to be placed, at the inbound spot, and putting it in the middle of the field is not an option. Okay, running play on this one, up the middle. Just think about our mechanics and where we're looking, who's responsible for what, and those kind of pieces. So on this play, you notice that we have a tackle in the middle of the field, and it sure seems like the runner is down, and if we anticipated that that's what we would do and put air in the whistle. But this is an example of outstanding whistle control by the crew. We don't put the whistle in our mouth until we're absolutely ready to potentially blow the whistle. Secondly, we don't put air in the whistle unless we see the football. And then thirdly, we make sure that they are in fact down by rule, so we have something other than a hand or foot that is in contact with the ground. So we don't have that here. This is excellent whistle control by the crew. The running back lands on the defender and then rolls off with his knee or other body part besides the hand or foot not touching the ground. So this is really well done as far as not putting air in the whistle, not anticipating that he's going to be down, and allowing this player to make an athletic play. So excellent work in that regard. The only thing I would say, line of scrimmage official, if you notice at the top of the screen, I think we anticipated a little bit, and we end up coming onto the field of play, and then we're in the field of play as this play progresses, and we're not in the best position to officiate this play. Let it progress in front of you, and then follow the play and stay in the white. Gives you better depth and perception of this play, puts you in a safer position to officiate, and the spot really isn't that critical. So we don't need to be really even up with the running back. So it all starts with being 1 yard at least off the line of scrimmage at the snap, because if we do that and then we move downfield, more likely to stay in the white and keep that depth that we want. So that's the only thing I would point out about this play, just to consider. Make sure we work 1 yard deep and then work down in the white throughout the play, allowing the running back and the running play to proceed in front of us. But overall, excellent officiating, excellent judgment, and whistle control by the crew. On this play, we're down in the red zone, so think about our red zone mechanics and what we're doing here. Back judge on the end line like we should. Remember, when we snap on the 15 or in, that's where we're going to be positioned. And then we handle this play really well from a back judge and coverage perspective. However, you'll notice that we do have an ineligible downfield called by the umpire. Remember, in Minnesota, with the umpire in the offensive backfield, they're not going to have any part of this play. It's going to be line of scrimmage entirely for ineligible downfield. And then referees, we do not need a preliminary signal on this. They're obviously going to take the penalty, because if they don't, it's going to be a touchdown. So we don't need a preliminary, just dispense of it and let's get on with it. So you'll see here that it's called on what looks like the right tackle or guard, and we have a touchdown. And what I want to point out is ineligible downfield is one of the most inaccurately called fouls in all levels of football. we call these way more often than we should, and we're not correct on a very high percentage of these. And the reason for that is we need to use a two-step process. So we need to know that the linemen are more than 2 yards downfield, which is 228.2. The ineligible players are downfield beyond that 2-yard belt, and we're talking about a healthy 2 plus 3 yards downfield. So we see them at that point, and then once we pick them up that they're downfield, line of scrimmage officials, then we look for the football. If the football's still in the hands of the passer and then he subsequently throws a pass, now we have a foul. But what we do as a mistake very often is we do it the other way around. We see the ball get released and then we're looking for ineligible players, and invariably those players are way downfield by that time, or by the time it's touched by the receiver, and we think they are further downfield than they really were. And then we put a flag on the ground on a play that we shouldn't, and unfortunately in this particular case takes away a touchdown. So what we're talking about here is Rule 7.5.12. Ineligible A players may not advance beyond the expanded neutral zone on a legal forward pass play before a legal forward pass that crosses the neutral zone is in flight. So again, when the pass is released, then they can go beyond that 2-yard, healthy 2+ yard belt. So again, looking at this particular play, when the ball is released, that ineligible player is right around 2 yards or so, and this is not one that we would want called, and of course it takes a touchdown away. So we want to make sure these are big fouls, and keep in mind that ineligible downfield is one of the most inaccurately called fouls at all levels of football, and this is why we don't follow that two-step process of find the ineligible player that is a healthy 2+ yards downfield, and then look for the football to see if it's still in the hands of the passer. And then if it is and they throw a pass, clearly we have a foul in that case. Unfortunately, in this case, if you watch a little bit later in the clip, the umpire doesn't put the flag down until way late. And I know what he's thinking. He's thinking, holy cow, this guy's way downfield, when in fact he was within that 2-yard belt when the ball was released. So just be really careful on these. Understand that they have to be outside of that 2+ yard belt at the time of release, and if not, then they're in good shape. So just be really careful on these and use that two-step process mechanically so that we can get these plays correct. On this one, we have a free kick here, and we're going to have encroachment called by the back judge on the kicking team. So we shut it down properly. So that's all handled well. Remember, we're shutting it down if we do have that, and then we go through the process of having another free kick. So we do that part well. But let's talk about mechanics and philosophy. So remember, back judges, we're going to be 2 yards off of K's line. Don't move onto the field until all of the K players have crossed your face, okay? And then when we're talking about philosophy for encroachment, if we have a regular kickoff like we have here where it goes downfield, we're not going to officiate this like a pane of glass. So you see here in this still shot, at the time the ball is away, there's only one player really that's beyond that plane, and his foot isn't even down on the ground beyond K's restraining line. So we would not want to foul for encroachment on this one. We need to make sure that their foot is at least on the ground beyond K's restraining line before we put a flag down for encroachment on a regular free kick like we have here. But if we have an onside kick, then we're going to officiate K's restraining line like a plane of glass. So if we have an onside kick, back judges, and any of K's players break that plane of K's restraining line prior to the ball being kicked, we would have a shutdown for encroachment in that case. But if we have a regular free kick like we have here, don't officiate it like a plane of glass. we're going to allow this one to play out. We need to make sure that any of the K players for sure have their foot on the ground beyond K's restraining line before we put a flag down for encroachment. Okay, that will do it for training tape number 1. Hopefully these plays get the discussion going as a crew as we prepare for scrimmages and get into games next week. And I know that our surrounding states have started games already with Minnesota officials working some of those. So good luck this weekend with scrimmages or games and in your preparation as we move forward into next week. And we'll have another training tape next week with some more plays that will hopefully help your crew as we discuss mechanics, positioning, and philosophy moving into the season. Have a great weekend.